What would you say the craziest Jackie Chan film is? Besides Kung Fu Yoga. If you say Shanghai Nights, I'll be a little disappointed in you.
And which province do you represent, Your Highness?
Nevada.
I think that there are some really good contenders throughout the 90s, but I have one that you probably haven't heard of. One movie that I was surprised to find wasn't actually a Canon Group movie, despite feeling like it could easily fit in with the likes of American Ninja, Missing in Action, or Invasion USA. What's even more interesting is that the film I'm thinking of has two very different cuts, an American one and Jackie Chan's own Hong Kong cut. The film is The Protector from 1985. Not the most original title, but considering the time period, at least it didn't have the word dragon in it. The film was produced by Golden Harvest, one of my favorite film companies. During this period, they sought to extend their business internationally outside of China with films such as Cannonball Run 1 and 2, Death Hunt, Megaforce, Deadly Eyes, High Road to China, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, Death Wish 2, 3, and 4, and even The Gods Must Be Crazy number 3. If I have missed any, please let me know in the comments. I am genuinely interested in this subject. Golden Harvest chose James Glickenhaus to direct this project. I spoke on Glickenhaus's cinematic style in a previous video on the movie Shakedown. His style is one I don't believe we'll ever see again, being very gritty and street level. Due to his style, this would be the first Jackie Chan movie with heavy profanity and nudity. I've read the claim that the violence was heavier than Chan's usual fare, but I couldn't really see it. Glickenhaus has some great films in his repertoire, such as The Soldier, The Exterminator, and McBain.
Do you read me? Do you read me? Charlie 704, put the plane back!
We read you loud and clear.
They may not be Academy Award winners, but they are memorable. I normally like Glickenhaus's style, but I felt the nudity did get obnoxious, with a lot of time it just being in the background of scenes to the point where its inclusion in the movie is just unnecessary. I could say a good reason to watch the movie is the director, but which one? Chan and Glickenhaus throughout filming became very displeased with each other, to the point where years later they still have nothing good to say about each other. Chan sought permission from Raymond Chow, head of Golden Harvest, to recut the movie for the Asian markets, and Glickenhaus agreed, as long as people clearly knew this was Chan's vision, not Glickenhaus's version. Therefore, there are two very different cuts of the movie that exist. The American cut is very easy to find, being on Tubi last I saw, but Chan's version is harder to find. Because of this, it is easier to find a high-fidelity cut of the Glickenhaus version. So, let me give you a rundown of the plot and tell you at what point the two films split off from each other in story. Billy Wong, played by Jackie Chan, is a New York City cop whose partner is gunned down during a robbery. Billy and his new partner, Danny Garoni, are working security at a fashion show when a wealthy man's daughter, Laura Shapiro, is kidnapped. The federal authorities suspect that Laura's father is involved with Mr. Ko, a Hong Kong drug kingpin, so the New York City Police Commissioner sends these two cops to Hong Kong to investigate. Once in Hong Kong, the pair cause no end of trouble for both Mr. Ko and the local authorities. And here it is, once the plot goes to Hong Kong, the two films begin to vary. Glickenhaus's version has longer shootouts and the aforementioned nudity. Chan's has more martial arts fight scenes that I feel really complement his abilities. His fight against the main henchman in this version, Chan's version, goes on much longer and gets much crazier. There is a Japanese cut that supposedly has longer cuts of some of the scenes, but I have not been able to track it down at this point. Overall, I prefer the Chan cut. It has some better stunts and fights, while still retaining the core of all the shootouts without any noticeable cutting of violent content. I was perfectly fine with seeing the superfluous nudity cut out. The plot in the Chan version does give better explanations of how the plot moves forward after Hong Kong, leading me to wish that there was a fan edit that cut all the best of the two together, giving a longer, more action-packed script that was also a tighter script. The deaths of characters good and evil are much better in Chan's cut, and give a stronger impetus to the narrative. The action being a reason to watch is definitely here in both cuts, but you'll have a more complete classic Hong Kong movie, classic HK action, with the Chan cut. There are some awesome shootouts, and I always love when Chan uses a gun. He brings a fluidity to the action just like his martial arts roles. He was inspired by this movie to begin making his police story series. Everything he wanted the Protector to be, he was able to finally culminate in the Police Story series. Either way, the Protector has solid foot chases, a boat chase, gunfights, and frenetic punch-ups. They do introduce a big, powerful gun in the movie, but then only use it to shoot one guy. It's a bit of a disappointment, honestly. The cast is truly a reason to watch, as you can rarely go wrong with Jackie Chan in the 80s and 90s. I could go on endlessly about my favorite films of his, but I've probably gone down that tangent before. Roy Chow has a prominent role once they get to Hong Kong, and has been in a lot of great action movies like Bloodsport, Not a True Story, sorry, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Dragons Forever, which he also did with Jackie Chan, Righting Wrongs, Enter the Fat Dragon, Treasure Hunt, and so many others. Sally Ya has a big role in the Chan cut, and you may recognize her as the girl from The Killer. She was also in Peking Opera Blues, which is a really good action movie, despite the misleading title. I thought Danny Aioli was a really weird choice for Chan's co-star, but he pulls it off pretty well. He's had roles in Leon the Professional, Hudson Hawk, which is much better than people give it credit for. They just couldn't decide what to market it as, and it really never. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Lucky Number 11, The Godfather Part 2, the original Men on Fire. For those of you who don't know, the Denzel version is a remake. Sorry. The Purple Rose of Cairo, and Once Upon a Time in America. He does certainly usually play the same two roles. The Protector is a really interesting movie, as the two cuts have very different second halves. I prefer the Chan cut, but it's a bit difficult to track down these days. It is the first movie where the title Super Cop is applied to Jackie Chan. The behind the scenes, with the strong difference in vision between the two directors and their continued disdain for each other to this day, really says a lot about the movie. I've always really appreciated Glickenhaus's style of films, but I think I side with Chan on this one. If possible, I recommend comparing the two visions and seeing if you agree with me. If you've seen either version, or even the Japanese cut, let me know in the comments below your thoughts, your impressions. Anything you have to add to the discussion is always very appreciated. Consider subscribing, and until next time, this has been Stormdog.